Hello everyone, my name is Akirami. We are doing another special edition of Noodle class today from Yamato headquarters, Japan, in Kagawa. And my name is Akira, and I'm going to be host for this class. And this is my colleague Megumi. She's making Lanzhou Ramen today. And so let's get started. And so Lanzhou Ramen may be like the oldest noodle dish that we know today. And so we are talking about it. We are studying it today. And but before we start, right, allow me to like spend a few minutes introducing ourselves, like for those of you who don't know much about us. So we are a Yamato manufacturing company. We've been in this business of a noodle making machine, manufacturing noodle making machines that are designed for restaurants and noodle small production. Been in this business for 45 years. And about 20 years ago, we started conducting noodle schools on ramen, udon, and soba. So we not only teach, the technical methods of production of noodles, soups, toppings, and like menu development, and but no, but also kind of operational side of things like management and how to operate the noodle restaurants. So we've been conducting these classes for almost like 20 years. We have a school here in Kagawa, we have a school in Tokyo, we have another one in Singapore. So we teach everything that one needs to start successful noodle business. And we have customers using our machines in 61 countries and more. And we have 8 offices in Japan, including Tokyo, Osaka, and other big cities. We have an office in South Korea, one in Singapore, one in Netherlands, another in United States. We have partners in different countries. So we are basically a group of noodle making experts that help our customers with their noodle businesses by providing noodle equipment, recipes, and training and other things like whatever they need to start noodle business. Okay, so that's about us. So let's start talking about Lanzhou Ramen. So the things that we're gonna do today, so we're gonna talk about what is Lanzhou Ramen or beef noodle soup, so sometimes called. And what are the keys in making Lanzhou ramen? Then we're going to demonstrate how Lanzhou beef noodles are made from scratch on a noodle machine. And we're going to show how to put together a Lanzhou ramen dish in the kitchen. That's done by our instructor. And then we're going to do a Q&A session. So please send us any questions in the comments, like if you have any during the class. So it's hard to say this noodle soup dish is a type of ramen, but because the noodles use kansi as ingredients, so as a definition, we are calling it Lanzhou ramen today. So Lanzhou is the name of a city in northwest China, and it is where this noodle dish is originated. So the people there are diverse, with the top population being Chinese, but the second top being Muslims and other Mongolian-related tribes. Because of this relatively large population of Muslims, Lanzhou ramen dish or noodle soup is primarily originally like halal, using only ingredients allowed for what Muslims can eat. There says to be over 3,000 shops that serve Lanzhou ramen in this city. So this noodle soup may be probably the oldest type of noodle soup that there is, and there are many variations. The standard type has the following characteristics. So each of which is dubbed with a unique color. So clear soup, like the clear color, braised pieces of daikon radish, white, chili oils, red, cilantro and garlic leaves, green, and noodles that are sleek, yellow, like yellow color. So the taste and flavors may be different, but every shop specializing in serving Lanzhou ramen has all these 5 components in the bowls. So the soup is based on beef, but also on a variety of medicinal herbs and spices that are cooked together to keep down the unpleasant smells of beef. Whole chicken may be used for the broth as well. Though the stock is cooked for relatively long hours because Lanzhou ramen soup needs to be clear, translucent, so the stock is cooked at low heat. Noodles are handmade in from the customers to order. A noodle making origin stretches and pulls the portion of dough in a dynamic and fast motion, so the customers can enjoy watching it. So making the noodles in house kind of serves as a kind of plays a role like entertaining factor. So let's look at the components of a Lanzhou ramen noodle dish. And so noodles are handmade with kansi, but this kansi has a higher ratio of sodium carbonate, which softens the noodle texture and bring moisture in dough. So I'm going to talk about more about later. The soup is cooked mainly from beef meat and bones. Because the soup is clear, the stocks are cooked for as long as like 6 hours at low heat. Traditional authentic Lanzhou ramen shop uses many types of medicinal herbs and spices and whole chicken as well. Toppings are braised beef shank, which is used in cooking the stock, cilantro, slices braised and seasoned daikon radish. Condiments and spices are chili oils, white sesame, and black vinegar. So we add a bit of black vinegar to change the taste of soup after going halfway through. So typical at a typical ramen shop, runs ramen shop, you can custom order your bowl by choosing the size and shape of your noodles and choosing the amount of oil, chili oils. You can also order like extra toppings, beef chunks that are dry because they're used in cooking the stock, and cilantro, and slices of seasoned daikon. Some shops also offer other small dishes that are mainly kind of like appetizers. So each shop has its own staff who has been trained to hand make noodles. So those are prepared and they take a portion of dough and start making into noodles by stretching and pulling it. So they make each portion of noodles freshly to order using the same dough and they are very, very fast. So I got this picture from the website of the one of the like most famous Lanzhou ramen shop from China. That's called like Zuru restaurant in Zimbocho. Um, so you please visit the if you want to know more about Lanzhou ramen, please visit the website after this class. So they offer an option of like 9 different noodles, like each different sizes, different shapes. So basically, noodles are basically handmade by stretching high hydration dough and eventually pulling the dough into the noodle shapes. Many shops offer their noodles in different shapes and thickness, so the customers can choose the shape and thickness. The most popular noodles may be round in cross section and small in size. So there are other shapes of noodles, such as flat and triangular shapes. So these are the basic 3 types. And the Lanzhou ramen shop can make each shape in different sizes. One shape that's especially interesting, right, is that this is the triangular shape. That's somewhat similar to like curled noodles. And some shops claim that this noodle shape holds more soup. The soup will be carried in the dense, the noodle surface. And kansi is used to make the dough, and the traditional noodles call for kansi, which is made from ash of certain types of plants. Using this kansi is said to give unique flavor and a sleek texture. Noodles vary dramatically in size, probably because they're handmade for the flat shape. Some shops offer flat noodle that's as wide as over 5 centimeters. Also, as the noodles are pulled, thrown into boiling water and cooked, noodles are single strand. So it's a one long single strand of noodles. It may be possible for our ramen machine to make it this way, but not like portioning noodle dough. If this feature is important for our customers, and because the noodles are handmade, the size, the diameters, thickness, width, and curliness may be different even in the same serving. So that's one thing that may be different between like handmade and machine-made noodles. that randomness in size and shape. And so again, like, I always use this chart, like noodle texture chart. Let me explain. So that horizontal line, that's hydration ratio. So how much water is contained in noodles. So the higher the hydration, the softer the noodle texture. So the vertical line represents the protein content of the flour that's used to make the noodles. And higher the protein, the harder, lower, softer. And on the right-hand side, like, there's a size, right? Size of the noodles. And so the Lanzhou ramen, like it's really hard to actually put the Lanzhou ramen noodles in this chart because the hydration ratio is like around 40% or more, and the shape, the size, as I'm talking about, like the size varies dramatically, right? From probably goes from like 0.5 to like maybe 40 millimeters or so. Like it varies in sizes dramatically. But basically, like, hydration ratio is high, around like 40% or more, and the protein content is low because it's a soft texture, around 8% to maybe like 10%. So the wheat flour is, we talked about like protein hardness, and for Lanzhou ramen, that's kind of soft texture. So it's around like 8 to 10, probably up to 10%. And the ash, this is the color. The noodles like darker, and has, the higher the ash, the more like kind of gives like a kind of coarse noodle texture, and it has a stronger wheat flavor. The Lanzhou ramen, it's usually white, so it has low ash content. And viscosity value is measures like how elastic the noodle become, and basically the higher the viscosity, the more elastic, so better the noodle texture. So these three things are important, like when you're trying to find a flour for good flour for Lanzhou ramen noodles. And other things that we can talk about wheat flour is that, like, protein, gives a hardness, and starch, bounciness, and sliminess. So sliminess kind of appears like on the noodle surface when we cook the noodles, after we cook the noodles, and sometimes customers don't like this texture, so we sometimes want to wash them off, like by in a cold water. And so what changes that, like the protein content and the starch content. So the more protein, the higher the protein content, the less starch. Less protein, more starch. And talking about hydration, so basically how much water contained. So we categorize the noodles into three types by hydration level, and basically like from like 24% like low to maybe as high as like maybe 50, 55% for the noodle dough. And basically the higher the hydration, the shorter the mixing time. So Lanzhou ramen noodles like is considered high hydration noodle. Another thing I want to touch on, like, when talking about water, is that we want to use soft water to cook the noodles, to cook the stock soups, because when we cook the noodles, for example, in the hot water, so the calcium and salt and other things like need to be released to cooking water. In exchange, the noodle gets water, and that's how the noodle gets cooked. But when we cook the noodles in the hot water, which has a lot of minerals like magnesium, like calcium, so there's less room for these ingredients to be released to. So it takes longer time to cook the noodles. And when we cook the noodles in longer time, for longer time, then the noodle melts, the surface noodle melts, which is bad for the noodle texture. And then some of the noodles are melting into the cooking water, so we are losing the noodles in the cooking water, and so the yield of the noodles, like cooked noodles, is bad. Um, and then we have to spend more money on gas and labor. So there's nothing good about like using, using hot water to cook the noodles and stock. So when you have to like work with the hot water, then you should use this kind of like device, the water softener, which you can see in the picture. that will save you a lot of money. And talking about the other ingredients, kanshi. So kanshi is something you have to have in ramen noodles to be called ramen. And basically, we use the kanshi type of kanshi that's a combination of potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. Potassium carbonate hardens the noodle texture, changes the noodle color to yellow, and has a stronger kanshi smell. The sodium carbonate, that's the exact opposite. So it softens the noodle texture. So that Lanzhou ramen noodle is a soft texture. So it uses the kanshi that has higher ratio of like sodium carbonate. And so we blend this potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate at different ratios for different sizes for different noodle textures. All right, so let's talk about the noodle making processes. So basically, in this slide, talks about the building the foundation of like good noodles, which is like making dough and gluten structure inside dough. And the most important step in this process is measuring the ingredients of the right ratios. And because if you screw up on measuring, then the rest of the process wouldn't matter. Because you want to be precise in measurement of the ingredients, the right ratio. So for that to happen, like we always measure like water and the flour and other things like by weight, grams and pounds, so that we can be more precise, not by volume. And so the mixing, so we mix the solid ingredients and liquid ingredients, and so we basically mix it at 60 rotations per minute, which is the ideal rotational speed for the mixing of the noodle dough. And so this agitation granulation phenomena happens. Each flour grain will gradually come together to form crumbled dough. It's when it's mixed with the liquid. So to form the gluten structure, kind of web-like gluten structure, as you can see in the picture. Okay, and the resting. So after mixing, like we put the dough into a plastic bag and then rest it to further develop the gluten structure. And then we do the wrap forming, combining, second resting, and these process I'm going to talk about later when we actually make noodles in the machine. So after we make the dough in a perfect gluten structure, all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness and cut it, portion it, and we for the ramen noodles we rest it, but like in the Lanzhou ramen noodle, like they immediately cook the noodles, boil the noodles after they make into the noodle strands, and they don't wash or chill it to get rid of the starch, remove the starch. So that's the process. And good Lanzhou ramen noodles are kind of coming like different sizes, different shapes. When we talk about this, so we use on a ramen noodle machine, we use this cutter, what we call a Slitter Cutter. So it has this fixed width of like groups. So each group like is fixed in the size, like so the width that determines the width of the noodles. And so then this type of like Slitter cutter comes in like different shapes. So we have like square, round, like edgy cut, and so like we are making this like primarily handmade noodles on a noodle machine, and so to what we are using like today we are using square and round cutter to make noodles that are similar in size and shapes, Lanzhou ramen noodles. And so we thin the dough using this set of rollers. So that determines like so by roller gap determines the thickness of the noodles, and width is determined the cutter size. Okay, so that's what I had for the lecture part. And before we start making noodles, allow me to spend a few minutes talking about just the benefits of house-made noodles. And so, like, basically 5 benefits that we have, like when we doing like house-made noodles. And so the first, like beta noodles, you can make beta noodles at lower cost, better quality, better taste, and from than if you buy the noodles from factory, right? And you can have total control over quality and what you can produce. And because you're the one who's making them, you know what you're putting them. You have total freedom to what you can make and what you can put in your noodles. And you can provide more values to customers. So taking advantage of the first benefit, you can probably give customers like free noodles. You can probably like allow the customers to choose a bigger portion at the same price or so. And customers appreciate it. Like they just keep going back to you. And you can make unique products, which I'm going to talk about more about later. And you can show your customers how you make noodles from scratch. So Lanzhou Ramen Shop, they have like noodle making artisans and making noodles in front of you. Um, and it's kind of like same thing. You can show the customers how you make noodles from scratch in a ramen machine, in a noodle machine, and it's kind of fun to watch. The noodles churning out fresh noodles. So that's like also like entertaining factor. Okay, so if you're a restaurant serving noodles, you have two options. You can buy noodles from factory or like make your own noodles. And if you're typically maybe like you may be paying like 50 cents in US dollars per serving if you're buying from a factory. You make your own. The cost of making one serving noodles maybe around like 20 cents US dollars, including labor, utility fees, and ingredient costs. So you may be looking at 50 to 60% in saving. So that's a lot of saving if you think about like how many servings you sell a day and in a month, in a year. And you can make a variety of products. So we did like ramen, udon, soba, like soba noodles, stir-fried noodles, pasta, some types of pasta, and Chinese style noodles, and gyoza, wonton, and spring rolls was great. So it's very easy to make variety of products, noodle products, wheat products. And this is a typical setup, like smaller setup that you could do for the house-made noodles. So that in this setup, like with this setup, you maybe like produce up to like 500 servings a day, in about like 6 hours. And so it doesn't take much space at all. So it's another benefit that you can think about when considering to start house-made noodle production. Okay, so we've been doing this online class for a while, but like every time like we do this and try the noodles we make during the class, we feel really bad because we can't let you guys try the noodles or noodle dish that we make during the class. So, but if you are close to one of these locations, please contact. And if you're interested in trying the noodles, please contact us, and like we will try our best to make them available to you. And Singapore, New York, Amsterdam, Holland, Seoul, Korea. So, all right, so let's get started making Lanzhou ramen noodles. Okay, so ingredients, we have flour. This is it's actually a flour that we use for production of udon noodles, which like thicker noodles. That's Japanese noodles, and then so the protein content is 8.5%, and the ash content is actually very low, 0.34%. And we have a salt. We have oil. That's just vegetable oil, and that's just currency. That's like just 0.1% to the weight of flour. So that's about like 4 grams. Like this is 4 kilograms. So it's 4 grams, and then it's water. And so these are the liquid ingredients. And hydration ratio is actually 40%, 40% to the weight of flour. So that's 1.6 kilograms of liquid, including the salt and oil and currency. so dissolved in the water. So these are the ingredients. So what I'm doing, we're making the first um, batch of Lanzhou Ramen noodles in this machine. So this machine is called Rich Man One machine, and so rich, of course, like rich, right? Rich man. Man means noodles in Japanese, so that's kind of like rich noodles, but like and then it's one type one machine, and it's an all-in-one noodle machine that it's like it's got everything, like all the functions that you need to start making your craft noodles from scratch. And you can make around 100 portions of fresh noodles in an hour from scratch in this machine. All right, so she put on a timer like for 1 minute and it just mixed it just with the flour. And so she's pouring the liquid. Remember, the liquid has water, oil, and currency and salt. And so, like, she just poured the liquid like onto the lid, which has a small holes, right? Small holes, so that this liquid will like drip through the holes, right? And then so that the liquid is added to the flour little by little to render the good hydration of dough. And we don't have time to like kind of wait for the mixture to be done. So she prepared another batch of dough. That's that's two kilogram batch and 40% hydration ratio. Like so, same dough. And so the first process that she's going to do is that like on this machine that she's going to make rough sheet of dough. We call it rough forming, and so what she's doing like is that like she's feeding the dough into a set of rollers. That's that's uh, that's set to 2 millimeter in roller gap, and so the sheet of dough like comes out the other side, and it's going slow because we want to apply like really good pressure on the dough. Remember, like in this process, like we are still developing the gluten structure inside dough, so we want to apply sufficient pressure in the dough into the dough to develop the gluten structure inside dough. So, as I said, like Lanzhou Ramen is like handmade noodles, and it's kind of hard to make noodles that are like traditionally like authentically like, handmade on a noodle machine. But it's possible. But it's possible to um, make them and make them really good on the noodle machine. You just have to have like recipes, and then proper ingredients. That's it. And so we have like over thousand thousand noodle recipes because like we every time like we communicate with our customers, who want to start doing like house-made noodles. They have their own sort of like recipes, and they try to every time they try to like develop the recipe or like noodles on our noodle machines. So we work with them, and so we try to figure out what the recipe, like what the noodle, I mean, what the flour should be, what the flour should be like. You may have to like blend like more than one flour to get that, bring out that noodle texture, the flavor, and you figure out the hydration ratio, like percentage of the hydration ratio, and then what kind of constantly like we have to use, and then how many percentage of like potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate need to be. So all these like we have to figure out to so over the 45 years, we've developed a lot of noodle recipes, and like so it's way more than like 1,000 noodle recipes. So every time like we sort of like help our customers like develop their own recipes from scratch. We are adding new noodle recipes to our database. So that helps, right? That really helps our customers, and so that's what we do. So even though like if you're like trying to make like kind of some unique noodles that you haven't really tried anywhere else, like we could help you. We could help you develop that recipe. We own like craft noodles. So especially this is a soft dough, like 40% hydration ratio. So it's very soft, like that the dough itself like very soft, like so. You may want to kind of handle the dough like kind of gently, not to rip it. And so after the rough forming, so we have like rough sheet of dough now, and what we're doing now is that like we are separating it into two sheets and combining them into one sheet again through the rollers, and we call it a combining process. So this dough is still like pretty fragile because we just made like rough sheet of dough out of mixer. Um, so that's and we want to make it firm, but we want to make it stronger. And this combining process does that. So that those surface like becomes smoother, sleeker, and it's getting firmer. So this combining process is like what we do like to strengthen the noodle texture and develop a gluten structure. And again, like this time around, like we are again like going slowly. And to make like high hydration noodles, you also have noodle machines that are designed to produce high hydration ratio noodles. High hydration ratio noodles, we're talking about like over 45% up to like 55% or so. And we call this machine like udon machine, and it has you can make like beautiful noodles on this machine too, but like um, the kind of the kind condition of dough will be like very different. Like it's more like bigger chunks of like crumbles dough. So it's there are kind of like more difficult to handle in this kind of like um, noodle machine, ramen machine. Like udon machine is also very easy to use. Like we have like all-in-one models that you can make beautiful noodles from scratch. So after the first combining process, we are doing another round of combining process to make sure that the gluten structure inside those perfectly developed. And from this point on, in the combining process, we wanted to stick the dough sheet together. But like after the second combining process, all we had, the gluten structure inside dough is totally developed. So all we had to do is just thin it. So in thinning, we don't want the noodles to be stuck together. So that's why we start dusting. And you can adjust the amount of dusting and use these high hydration ratio noodles. So we should be dusting a lot of dusting powder. And dusting powder we use um, is it's actually made of in Japan, like it's like we use like kind of special dusting powder, which is made of kind of palm tree starch, and well, like it's hard to procure it like in overseas. So overseas we really use like corn starch or like potato starch that helps noodles from sticking. So after the second combining process, all we have to just thin it to the final thickness. And Lanzhou Ramen shop, like I said that like you can, as a customer, you can choose from like maybe like 9, 10 options, different sizes, different shapes, and but like they use the same dough, basically the same dough. So but the texture, so they have like varying textures because like the shapes and the different shapes and different sizes bring out like different variety of noodle textures. It's kind of fun to select the noodles every time like we go to the Lanzhou Ramen shop, and we can actually offer a few options on the noodles this way, like by making the Lanzhou Ramen noodles on the ramen machine by using the same dough but different thickness and cutters. So we're trying to show you guys how we can do it this time. So in my lecture, like I said, well, there are basically like three shapes. One of them is round, like in different sizes. Another is flat noodles, different width, and another was triangular shape and different sizes. So these are the three basic shapes of like Lanzhou ramen noodles. And talking about like triangular shape Lanzhou ramen noodles, it's basically we can probably make something similar by curling, make them curl, and kind of the triangular shape like Lanzhou ramen noodles kind of like gives the kind of randomness in the noodle texture. So I think we can make something similar by um, kind of making the noodles curled. So that's what we're gonna try. Sorry, so after the second combined process, so we can speed up the sheeting process, go faster. And all this time, like we have to dust it because it's high hydration noodles. Okay, and so I would point out that the actual thickness of the dough is like always bigger than the roller gap that's gone through. And so that was like 2 millimeter, but like actual thickness was like 2.67-ish. So there's a difference by 0.76 millimeter. And so we have to know the difference to get the right final thickness. So we're cutting the dough into the noodle strands using this kind of sliotar we talked about, right? And this is number 14, and that's 2.2 millimeter in width. And so what we're gonna try to make this cutter is that the triangular shaped noodles. Triangular shaped noodles. And this cutter is the shape of it is square. So it's kind of like regular shape of for ramen noodles. And by crawling the noodles, they are cut with this Slitter Cutter. I think we maybe will like make something similar in noodle texture to the triangular shaped noodles. And you can make them curly by using the attachment part on the cutter. And but you know what you're gonna do is that we're gonna make them curly by hand later. And with this machine, you can actually change the portion size, serving size, by making it longer, making it shorter. It's very easy. You just have to touch on the, the length and volume knob. And so she's making curly by hand. So you just kind of like squeeze them with your hand. And so like this is handmade noodles in a way. But like to make sure like they're not gonna stick like when you are culling them, you should dust like additional powder to make sure they're not gonna stick. So yes, that's like the triangle shape Lanzhou Ramen noodles on, well, like similar in noodle texture. So using the same dough, right? I mean, doing this way, you may be able to offer few options of noodles, like different sizes, different shapes to your customers. Who may prefer like different noodle textures. So it's very easy to do it using the same dough. But like, in terms of noodle texture, they're gonna be very different, even from the same dough. Even like straight or curly, the noodle texture will be different. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to. Okay, so I'll change it in the cutter, and just gonna make like something else, some of the shapes, some of the sizes. And so this is the round shape cutter. It's not exactly going to be round, but like it's going to be like oval, kind of oval shape. But we call it round slitter cutter. So I think that this shape is probably the most popular shape and in Lanzhou ramen noodles because it's easy and quick to eat. Because Lanzhou ramen noodles is basically like kind of fast food. You know, you can go in and order like choose noodles and then um, you know you and then they just start making the noodles like to order. Or like probably 10 minutes or so, like you're solved with a bowl of like Lanzhou ramen noodles, and then you know it's you can eat it like you can eat it probably like I don't know if you're Asian, you maybe like finish it like in um, 10 minutes or so, and then get out. So it's a fast food basically. So this round shape noodles are most popular one, and was like round shape like number 18. So that it's width by like diameter is 1.7 millimeter. Can you see the cross section with the noodle like to be round or like oval in shape? Okay, so that's the round shaped noodles, and just cutting dough out for to save it for another shape and type of noodles. Right, so that's a round shaped noodles. So change the cutter and to this time like square, another square cutter, but like this time like it's wider cutter, number 10. So number 10 means that's 3 millimeter in width. So this time like we are making the flat noodles, the flat noodles. So to make flat noodles, so the flat noodles, thickness is smaller, and so that's 3 millimeter in width, and so the thickness would be like around 1.6 or so, or 5 millimeter. And you can of course like make it thinner by adjusting the roller gap. So they may not be like as wide as some of the widest Lanzhou ramen noodles, but these are flat noodles, and some people prefer it, and they are as soft as you can cut them, like you can break them with your lips, instead of like teeth. It's pretty easy to make different shapes, different sizes. using different cutters and adjusting the roller gap in this machine from the same dough, even from the same dough, making different shapes and sizes. Noodle texture will be like very different. So, it's something that you should think about offering to offer your customers. For customers like some options for the sizes. And it's very easy, and you can make them really with a precision of like thickness and with so like well, we wanted to do this like on the machine because it's like it's very difficult to like kind of find a good well, noodle making artisans from China, and bring them to your shop to do the pulling, hand making, and then it's like we have to spend like years like learning how to do that, right? So it may be a good idea to do it like in the machine. So that's something you might want to think about. Okay, so let's go to our kitchen, and our instructor is waiting for us. Yeah, smelling really good of the soup that's made of like beef and beef bones. And so this is our kitchen that we use for our school. And so this is like basically a lab where the students can come in and like kind of play around with like different components of the ramen soup and like udon noodles. So like we conduct like udon school and ramen school here, and we have the exact same facility in Tokyo, and we have a small version in Singapore. So we teach everything from scratch, production methods of noodles, soups, toppings from scratch, and we basically help each student to reach the final recipes of the noodle dish that they want to do. So yes, and then we've been because of COVID-19 situations, like we've been, it's impossible to welcome students from overseas. So what we're doing, like we've been preparing the like e-learning courses, which we are hoping to substitute some of the curriculums in the real courses, and we're hoping to be able to like start offering it in a few months. So if you are interested in it, in our methods, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then that we can keep you guys updated on this topic as well. So let me introduce our instructors. So Mr. Akira is our chief instructor, and because of his background in Chinese cuisine, he's very good at making like all these like Chinese like all these things like in Chinese. So in the previous class we did, like he made like beautiful xiao mei, and then like all these like baos and like everything like they were delicious. And so if you have like any questions from the previous classes, please contact him for any questions you might have. And so thank you, Mr. Ikeda. Thank you. Mr. San. So he's been doing like running like online courses in Chinese, and like so some maybe like who participate in Chinese online courses, you may know him, and then so he's a great instructor, Mr. San. So like he's pretty soon he's doing is it tomorrow? Is it tomorrow? Like tomorrow he's doing the online course tomorrow, like in Chinese on that's udon noodles, like a hot pot udon noodles. Like that's the season, and it's getting colder, so it's a great topic to cover tomorrow. So for those of you like who are interested in it, please sign up for the class from our website. So thank you, Mr. San. Thank you very much. So Mr. Takeuchi is our instructor with a Japanese cuisine background, and he's actually from like Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and so he speaks he's a native speaker of English. So we're lucky to have him to teach us the latter part of this class. So I pass it to Mr. You can call him Thomas. I pass it to Thomas.
Okay, once again, my name is Thomas. I'm one of the instructors at the Yamato Noodle School. And today's topic, Lanzhou beef noodle soup. Okay, so like there was explanation. Lanzhou beef noodle soup is combination of these five elements. So the one is clear, which is soup. Two, white, which is radish. Number three, red chili oil. And number four, green, which is cilantro. And number five, yellow noodles. Okay, so Lanzhou beef noodle soup is a combination of these five elements. And let me just talk about each parts. So first, the stock. The stock is mainly beef, so it uses beef shank or beef bone, and some places add in chicken to add in extra flavor to the stock. And originally, it's a halal dish, so no pork is used. Okay, and for the seasoning, it's seasoned mainly with salt and with a lot of different types of spices. Some of the examples are star anise, fennel seeds, and Szechuan peppercorn, cloves, and cinnamon. And this is just part of it. There's many other different types of spices used for the Lanzhou beef noodle soup. Okay, next, noodles. So originally, Lanzhou beef noodle soup, it's a hand pulled noodles. There's many different types of shapes. First one is round shaped noodles. The second one is flat, and the third one is triangular. And also, there's many different types of sizes. So there's many different types of shapes and sizes for the Lanzhou beef noodle soup. Okay? And with our ramen machine, you can make any kind of shapes depending on the cutter you use. So yeah, you can make all of these, except for the triangular. You can make the round or the flat one. Triangular is difficult, but round and the flat one is possible. And for the toppings, the first one is beef shank, and the second one cilantro. Number three, radish, and number four, chili oil. And these are the common toppings for the Lanzhou beef noodle soup. Okay, so let's just get going on making the soup and the chili oil. Okay, so let's start off from making the stock. This is our take on the Lanzhou beef noodle soup. I'm pretty sure it's not the complete traditional way of making the beef noodle soup, but this is a very simplified way of making it. Okay, so the ingredients: beef shank and chicken leg, chicken thigh, and leek, and also ginger slices and salt. Okay, so here's a liter of water. Okay, and what you do is you just add in all the ingredients. So beef and chicken thigh, leek, and ginger slices. And of course, you want to season with salt. And obviously the beef, it's going to become the topping, and also it's going to give the flavor to the stock. Okay, let's heat this up. Okay, first I want to bring this up to a rapid boil, and you want to do the scum removal to make a clear tasting stock. So I'm heating it up at high heat until boil, and once it boils, scum is going to start to float up on the surface of the stock. So you want to use a strainer to just pick up all the scum until it's completely clean to make a clear tasting stock. And after scum removal, you want to bring down the heat to lower temperature. So it's just like lightly simmering, and you want to let it simmer for 3 to 4 hours until the beef is nice and tender and the flavor is extracted. So it's almost at boil. So just like this, the stock starts to boil. So I'm just gonna lower the temperature, the heat. So it's just lightly simmering. And you wanna remove this. This is the scum that's floating from the ingredients. So you wanna remove this to make a clear tasting stock. And also if you wanna make clear looking, like clear, completely transparent stock, this scum will make the stock just make ruin the transparent look, so you gotta completely remove the scum. And you want to do this until the scum is completely white. At first, it's gonna be a little brown, reddish brown, but as you keep like removing the scum, it's gonna start to turn. The color will start to lighten up, and eventually it's gonna turn into white foam, and that's the end of the scum removal. And after the scum removal is complete, you just all you want to do is you want to simmer for 3 to 4 hours until the meat is nice and tender, so you can use it as a topping. Okay. And after 3 to 4 hours, stock is going to be like this. Okay. Beef is nice and tender. Okay. And the flavor is extracted. Okay. Now I want to strain out the stock and season the stock. So you want to use a nice fine strainer so you can remove all the bits and pieces so you have a nice clear tasting stock. And I'm going to season the stock with light color soy sauce and some Chinese five spices. So I'm going to add in the light color soy sauce and the Chinese five spices. And once everything is completely mixed, the soup part is complete. Okay. So it takes long hours, but it's a very simple stock, so I'm pretty sure it's possible to make it home as well. Okay. So next, we'll be making the chili oil. And the first step of making the chili oil is to extract the flavor from leek and ginger into the vegetable oil, just like this. Probably takes around 10 to 20 minutes until the leek and ginger is completely dehydrated and it's a little brown. Once the leek and ginger is like this, you just want to take it out. And now you want to bring up the temperature of the oil to 180 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to use the thermometer. And while we wait for the vegetable oil to heat up, let's prepare the spices. And here's the spices for the chili oil. This is a Korean chili pepper. It gives a nice red color. And also the Japanese chili pepper, it's going to make it really spicy. And the sesame for a nice aroma. And also the Szechuan pepper, peppercorn for the nice flavor as well. Okay, and you want to add in moisture to these spices because you don't want to burn the spices. And once you add in the water, you want to mix it up. So just like this. So this is gonna, once again, adding the water, it's gonna prevent the spices from burning, and also it's gonna help the extraction of the flavor and the spiciness and the color as well. Okay? So the oil is at 180 degrees Celsius. Higher than that, it's gonna burn the spices. Lower than that, it's not gonna extract the spices extract enough. So 180 degrees is the appropriate temperature. Okay, so you want to add in the oil and mix. Okay. So just like this. So make sure to mix every time you add in the oil to consistently extract the flavor and the spiciness and the color from the spices. So just like this is how to make the chili oil. Okay. So now that the stock, the soup, and the oil is complete, I want to complete the bowl of Lanzhou beef noodle soup. Okay. 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 For the toppings, we have the beef shank that we use to extract the flavor from, and also boiled radish, thinly sliced boiled radish, and cilantro, and also thinly sliced chili pepper, and also the chili oil that we just made. Okay. And here's the noodles. It's not hand pulled, but it's made for the noodle machine, but it's very close to texture. We're going to use that round shaped noodles. Okay, I'm going to boil these for 2 minutes. Okay. Make sure the water is rapidly boiling, and you want to break it apart as you put it into this, the basket and mix it up for the first 5 or 10 seconds and start the timer. And when you're boiling the noodles, you want the noodles to be moving around freely in the basket for that consistent boil. Okay, just like this. So while we wait for that noodles to boil, let's put the soup into the bowl. I'm going to bring up the soup to boil and just pour it into the bowl. Okay, so let's pour the hot soup into the bowl. So the biggest difference between the Chinese style noodle soup is that they completely season the soup beforehand and they just pour the seasoned soup into the bowl. But the Japanese version, they have the seasoning sauce into the bowl and then later you pour in that non-seasoned stock into the flavoring sauce to make the soup. So the timing of seasoning is completely different with the Japanese version and Chinese version. Okay, the noodles should be ready. Okay, you want to strain out all the boiling water because this is going to dilute the soup. Okay, so just like this. And put the noodle into the soup. And just let's line up the noodles. Okay. And for the toppings, sliced beef shank. And also thinly sliced radish. Sorry. And cilantro. And also the chili oil that we just made. And lastly, a little bit of this thinly sliced chili pepper on top for a nice color. So like I said in the beginning, Lanzhou beef noodle soup consists of clear soup, one clear soup, and two white for the radish, and also the red chili oil, and the green cilantro, and lastly the noodles, which is yellow. Okay, so this is how to make Lanzhou beef noodle soup. So originally it's made, the noodles are usually hand pulled style, but this is made with, you can also make similar texture with the noodle machine as well. Okay, so that's about it from my side. So I'm gonna pass it back to Akira.
Thank you, Thomas. That was great. And so that was like Lanzhou ramen noodles, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And well, Lanzhou ramen noodles is kind of something exciting, and then we were not sure like whether we can call it ramen or not because it's basically like Chinese noodle dish. So, but like it's getting very popular in Japan too. A lot of like specialty Rancho ramen noodle shops like popping up in Tokyo, and so that's pretty exciting. To have this type of noodle dish that's like one of the oldest noodle dish from China to be pretty popular, getting popular in Japan as well. And this is my actually one of my favorite noodle dishes, so I wanted to do it personally, and I'm so glad that we did it. And I'm hoping to see you guys again, like in the next class. So thank you so much for watching. Bye. Thank you.